So welcome everyone to another edition of the podcast. Welcome back. So good to have you. We took a week off last week because we can, right? And it's good to take a week off, right?
You were gone. Come on, admit it. We were all ready. We were ready to go. We were chomping at the bit.
I admit it. I said, you know what? We didn't take a vacation, much like a lot of other people, during this year. And when Corpus Christi went to year-round school, part of that means you get these intercessions throughout the 6 weeks every once in a while. And so last week was one of those. And we said, you know what, we better take advantage. So ended up only taking 3 days, but 3 days is 3 days. So
where'd you go?
To an undisclosed location. We went to the hill country. If we're not on the coast, we like the hill country. So we got away there just for a few days. So
I was worried if the work released there for a second.
You didn't get my letter?
Yes.
So yeah, it was good to be off, good to be back. Still need a vacation, but yeah, you take what you can get, and that's an important thing for ministry and just anybody, right? It's not just us pastors. Everybody needs to take a break and be intentional about it, right? What's your last vacation, and when is your favorite vacation spot?
When was the last vacation?
Yeah.
My last vacation was in Colorado in the Rocky Mountains. That was last summer.
Last summer, okay.
And mine was in June, and we went all the way to Flower Bluff.
Ooh.
But actually, a friend from Pennsylvania that we worked with in Russia, good friend, known since 1995, Sue, turned 50, and she wanted to come down from Pennsylvania and be on the beach. And so she actually rented a place in Flower Bluff. And so I think Ellen and I spent like one night there and said, let's go 10 minutes down let's go home. Yeah. So we had a great time though.
I don't remember 1970. I can't remember last time I had a vacation. Seems like it's been a long time, but yeah, we went last year to Illinois to see my daughter last summer. And so it's been over a year and I need a vacation.
Yeah, know what you mean. I'm real original. I love the Nashville area. I just love going there and kind of being in that spot, I
used to live up there.
Yeah?
Yeah, I lived in Franklin.
Oh, that's right. You can tell me that. Yeah. We found a spot for all you preachers or church leaders, missionaries. There's a ministry out of, what's the little town called? Oh, my goodness. Goodlettsville.
Oh, yeah.
They have some houses that they rent pretty cheap. For pastors or whatever, and we make use of it, and it's quiet and it's nice. Yeah, it's good. So anyway, we miss going up there. But anyway, so we're back and ready to get at it. Anything in the news since we've been gone? Anything substantial? Did we miss anything?
Our walk-up song. That's what we missed.
Guys. So if you're listening, we're trying to figure out a walk-up song, mainly for Tom. He's been demanding.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't get one, he's going to do some drastic things to make his voice be heard. So we need a good walk-up song for Tom.
Yeah.
So what about this guy who's been in the hospital last couple of days? Some kind of sickness. Have you heard about that?
I don't know. He gave it to his wife too. Is what I heard.
So he gave it to her,
or she gave it to him. They both got it.
They both got it.
Yeah, they both got it.
I read an article that there are more COVID cases in the White House than there are in the countries of Taiwan and a few other places. Like, ouch,
Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess it reaches a different kind of different level, right? When the president, leader of the free world, gets infected. Do you see that changing anything or adding any kind of nuance or anything? What was when you heard that, what was I don't want to ask for your first response because I know you guys, but what was your thought? What was your thought when you first heard that news?
It's Friday.
It's Friday. Was it a Friday?
I think it was Friday, whatever day it was.
Yeah. It's just 20.
Yeah, I think so.
It's 2020. Here we are again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I know at least one person's response was it was inevitable because of the practices that our president was doing. Inevitable or not, the reality is, once again, we're reminded anyone can end up with the virus.
Mhm.
And well, I was going to say, it makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, we're all talking about we've come back.
Yep.
And my sense of the big question is, for how long?
Yeah, that was always in the back of our minds, right? As we're talking about that. And the most, I guess, the person who has secured the most in the entire world, he gets this virus. That's just the reality that all of us, right, run the risk, and what that means for us. And
Yeah, I don't think the
churches.
virus really has a way of discriminating. It's a virus. Viruses go to viruses. They're going to attack wherever they can attack, and that's just that's just what they are. And yeah, nobody's immune to that stuff.
Wait.
Power position.
Pun intended.
Well, really. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a virus. Viruses don't have any means of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, your hand's off. I won't know you." Next, they don't do that. So
I think what I would say is that, man, I don't wish that virus on anybody.
Right.
No.
And I hope everybody in this situation with the White House and the surrounding folks, or that everybody gets through it and there's no big complications. But I think we'd be remiss to say that the difference between the gathering that I had at church yesterday and the gatherings that I'm seeing from the White House is there were masks, there was hand sanitizer, there weren't hugs, so I think it's just a call to all of us to say, hey, that stuff probably matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we need to be as careful as we can, no matter what we're doing.
Yeah. I joked yesterday in worship, we did communion. We used the little prepackaged cups, right? And my wife helped me, and she came up, and and I always, even before all this, I would make an intentional sign that I had that little stuff there, and I'm just showing people that I'm doing this, right? Just kind of ease those fears, because people get sick in other ways too. And so yesterday when Gloria came up, she took the hand sanitizer and she just kind of dumped it all over him. And I said, "Dang, Gloria, that's a lot of hand sanitizer." Partly because I love, teasing my wife, and we go back and forth, but also just kind of making that sign to the rest of the church. We're doing everything we can, right? And so, we're up here and, getting ready for communion the best way we can. So it was good. But yeah, we need to take these precautions. It's prudent of us to do so. A little bit of good news I came across is that the Bible gets translated in its 700th language. 700th language, sir.
Which is,
oh man, you're gonna make me do that. Well, see, here's the deal. We're not quite sure. I won't give you there's a debate, because what's that?
Nobody speaks that language, or what?
Well, no. So the question is, who got there first? Like, which language got there first? And there's always, that kind of, we want to be number 700, not 701 or 699. So, do I have it here? No, I don't have it here. Oh. The three recent Bible translations that could have been the 700th is the Wixaritari, which is an indigenous people of Mexico, the Elamwi Bible, which is a people group in Malawi and Mozambique, and the Igedi Bible, which is used by a Nigerian ethnic group. So there you are.
Coming back to that, is that Wycliffe that's doing the translations? Because I know they're kind of the at the forefront of all of that.
Yeah, always have been, right? Yeah. So you guys, best favorite Bible translation for you or for people to use?
Well, the most common one for me is New International Version. But it's interesting with Bible Gateway, you can kind of move between different ones. And when it comes to the Gospels, I like I think it's the complete Jewish Bible. And because, it's interesting, that conversation between Jesus and Peter after the resurrection, and when Jesus asked, "Do you love me?" and the response, it's a clearer response in that translation than any of the others. It makes that distinction between the words that we translate love, but the Greek translates into or has several versions.
Okay. What about you guys? Any?
I've been New Revised Standard since, Jesus spoke in the New Revised Standard. And, I've always gone back to that one, but I've tried, I've got probably like all y'all, I probably have 17, 18, 19, 20 different translations, but I like the New Jerusalem Bible is a good Bible to give just a different perspective on the translations and stuff. NIV I've used as well because that's part of New Interpreters. They have them paralleled there.
Right.
And then the Common English Bible kind of hit me in a different new way when it came out about 10 years ago or more. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was kind of an interesting way. It had an interesting take on it. I'm not big into paraphrases, but I like Peterson's message. Compared to all the other paraphrases, that one seems to give, when you're talking to youth or folks who are new to the faith, it's kind of neat to look at that one as a way of understanding or helping to understand the original translations. But that's where I go to, and I'll bounce back and forth. New American Standard, New Century Version. I've got all of them, and so if there's something I just don't get out of one or two different translations, I look it up in all of them.
And still don't get it.
And I still don't get it.
Still don't get it.
Message,
Hey, Jesus.
Yeah. And I never find the version with the word that I really want.
Right.
That's right.
No, this is not it.
Yeah. Anything different, Wade, or are you about the same, or?
Kind of the same. I typically, preaching, I'm typically in the NRSV, New Revised Standard, or New Life translation.
Oh yeah.
And then, I also spend time with CEB and some with the Message. I've got this really cool Bible software that if I make notes in the software, they translate from version to version. So
you fancy.
Now when I make my notes, I got to say I made my note based on that version.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's just good to look at as many as you can, especially if you're looking at English translation, to see where you've got similarities and differences.
Yeah, what good is it if we're going to have 702 translations and we just not read the one we have, right? The English one we have, right?
I was going to say there's 702 translations, and there's and about 100 of them are in English. So
yeah. It is important. You think about this because there are still some people who have this thought that there is only one version to use. It's been several years ago. There was a man, and every once in a while we were still in touch. And this guy, he was a loner, didn't have family, and he kind of go from place to place. And we got connected in the town we were at, and one day he called me. He's crying. This is a big man too, and he'd ride his bike everywhere, literally across the country, and just he's crying because he wants to see if I can help him, because the hotel that we got him, in his bike, he had an NIV Bible there in the basket as part of what he would read. And the hotel owner just flipped out and started calling him a devil worshiper, and gave him another book that he needs to read to show him why, all those other versions are of the devil and everything else. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I thought we were past that. But I mean, that's still something that people are willing to to call somebody else out on when
my goodness. Yeah.
So we be careful of that. And when I forget which one of you just talking about, paraphrase and whatever, and understanding the difference of how that works in translation and why it's beneficial and helpful and even limited, right, in some ways, but just understanding the difference of that.
Yeah.
I had a member of a church in well, one of my early churches that I served, who taught an adult Bible study or an adult Sunday school class in Bible study, and he absolutely held totally to the King James version. And I come to find out he was a mathematician, but his passion was that old language and the beauty of the old language and how it came about. He really didn't care about how the King James version was how it started or originated or anything or the history behind it. It's just that was the language that spoke to him, and it was because he grew up on that Bible. He
Sure.
grew up long before the Revised Standard Version came out, based on the Dead Sea Scrolls and so on and so forth. But he really truly appreciated that beautiful poetic language of, for instance, the 23rd Psalm and so on and so forth. He really liked that, and I have a lot of respect for that. Somebody
Sure.
who's read different versions and says, "Nope, this is the one that speaks to my soul."
Well, when I read Psalms for just meditation,
Mhm.
I read King James
King James,
because it's just beautiful language. Yeah.
that is, yeah, it is.
I tend to be NRSV, certainly when I'm preaching, NIV, and then the third one is the New King James
Yes.
version. That's the
Yeah.
one. Those are my top three, and then get into the Message and others. Kind of for those same reasons, right? There, I mean, there's something different about the way that reads and the way it's translated and everything else. So anyway, all that to say, I don't care what version you read something, y'all. Oh my gosh, right?
Find
I don't care if it's the anime version right now. Just something. Look at him. Look at him. Wait, he's like, what?
What? What?
Sign me up. What happened, Wade?
Sorry.
Wasn't me.
Oh, he's
Wasn't
back.
me.
Yeah.
Something about
Technical.
anime just threw me off anyway.
Brad's over there flipping tables in the sanctuary. Oh, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah,
all right, guys.
We just had an earthquake on this side of Corpus.
Yeah, that's what it was. So speaking of earthquakes and things shaking up in the church, the cross and flame. There's an article that came out. This was on September 22nd, so not too long ago. Conference backs replacing cross and flame. And I'm not going to read it all, but out of the North Texas Conference, which is not too far from our own conference, they, as an entire conference, adopted a push to begin to redesign and decide on a new emblem to use for the denomination, that they were going to disassociate themselves essentially from the I call it traditional cross and flame, the one we're all used to. So I'll be up front. I didn't know this was an issue up to about 3 months ago. I first came across something online and I thought, well, that's strange, weird, what? And so I started reading, and this is kind of conversation's been around for a little while, and so it's gonna, now that one conference adopted this, the article gets shared in different places, and more of our people start hearing about it, which I think is fine. Obviously, we have to figure out kind of find a way to have a response, and so I mean, who wants to go first? So let's decide here and now whether we are going to replace the cross and flame as an entire denomination.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, which denomination? The one that's the current denomination, or the one that'll probably be around in 3 years? The difference. And I mean, that it was very helpful, very informative. Both originally reading the article that came out September 22nd, a little over a week ago, and then it referenced the article that you're probably talking about that came out in July by a pastor in the North Texas Conference, and he starts out with something that I had never, I just never had thought of or reference, and that was that for him as as a Black pastor, that the cross and the flame, a flaming cross, spoke images that elicited images of fear rather than of faith, and when he left and CME, what's the C stand for in CME? Christian
Well,
Methodist
originally it was
Episcopal.
Colored Methodist Episcopal, but now
Colored.
Yeah,
call it
they've
Christian
changed. They've changed it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I was I AME I was familiar with, but CME was kind of a new. Anyway, he was moving from CME to United Methodist, and that was one of the things that kind of at least took he was taken aback by that imagery, because his recollection was at 10 years old seeing an actual flaming cross, and his mom explaining to him at 10 that this was a fear tactic. And so I go, I never thought about it because it hasn't been a part of my experience. I'm of course white and I'm not black, and you may have not noticed that, but anyway, and it was very informative to read that, and also kind of follow some of the links. I've learned a lot in just pursuing, the starting with the North Texas Conference decision, then the pastor's article, and then things he referenced like Birth of a Nation and 13th, and then getting into other things. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
think.
Go ahead, Wade.
well, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, and I'm okay with changing because it's inevitable anyway.
I think to start with, just as a little bit of an aside, CME used to be Colored Methodist Episcopal Church.
Mhm.
They changed that because that became an objectionable term, and so they changed their tradition.
Mhm.
And to me, this is about branding and tradition. And I know that there are. I've heard this from people. I know that there are people that say it doesn't mean that. It does. I would never want it to mean that it's a burning cross. And I think, I hope what we're learning about race and history in our country is that it doesn't really matter as much what I intend out of sort of ignorance as to how it's taken by other folks. And I've had several people throughout my years of ministry who were new to the Methodist Church, white and black, say, why do we have a burning cross? And for a long time, I'd say, oh, that's not a burning cross. And then I would explain what it was. But it means that for a large segment of people, it seems. And for me, I don't get to decide. But for me, what's the primary thing that we're interested in the United Methodist Church? Well, I hope it's some of Jesus's words, which is, love God and love our neighbor. And then I hope it's some of Wesley's words, which are do no harm, do all the good you can, stay in love with God. And if our logo, which is just a logo,
Yeah.
is even helping people remember harm. And I think in the middle of that, we also have to acknowledge our history of being complicit with slavery as a Methodist church. And so I think to justify the harm that's being done to somebody else is very uncomfortable for me. And I'm with you, Tom. Man, I have great affection and appreciation for my learned understanding of the cross and flame.
Yeah.
But my faith is in Jesus, and my adoration is for God and his people. And if some of his people are being hurt by this, it just seems like something that we can let go of.
I guess, I'm right with you on all of this. And I think part of where I'm at in all of this is I've read the article by Reverend Cowley out of North Texas Conference. And he said this happened in 1979. I grew up in in West Tennessee. I lived in all three states of Tennessee. If you've never been to Tennessee, you don't know there's three states, but the Tennessee River divides the state into East, Middle, and West. And I've lived in all three sections of Tennessee. And when I was in West Tennessee, we moved there shortly after Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, which is, I mean, we lived in Covington, north of Memphis. And I remember growing up in that little town and starting school there in 1969, 1970. And Tipton County schools had just desegregated and integrated at the same time. Now, if y'all don't know what that means, it means that they're no longer segregated by race, but they integrated, meaning that we only had so many schools and so many desks. And so everybody going to come together. And my first experience in a public school was in what used to be known as the old black high school, Fraser Memorial High School. And I remember for the first 5-6 weeks of school, before they got around with the little Allen wrenches to lower the desks, that I couldn't see over the desks in first grade because I was in a high school classroom. And so we stood beside our desks and we wrote up here as best we could to see what we could do. I remember at that school coming to school one morning and seeing a big burn spot across the street from the school where a cross had been burned, and not knowing what the heck it meant. But knowing that my parents were very freaked out about it. So that's and that the image, gosh, that was 1970. That image is still fresh in my mind, of not just knowing what all it meant, but also knowing that it was important enough to make my parents nervous and concerned. And so when we started, you know, I grew up and I started learning about all of this stuff. I'm right there with Reverend Colley. I know exactly what that was meant for. It was not meant as, this was not a pep rally of the kind of pep rallies that you want to have. This was the kind of pep rally that was designed to intimidate and scare. And went to seminary in Denver. And one of my professors was Vincent Harding, who was there in Memphis when Dr. King was shot, and not very far away from him either. And hearing his stories about this were painfully reminding me of where I grew up and all the things that I experienced. But I think as I look at that perspective, I have a great deal of appreciation for where they're coming from. I know that fear. I don't know it to the extent that they know it, but that fear is real. It's not made up, and it's not over hypersensitive and blah, blah, blah. There is a fine line, I think, that we walk between the concern for being politically correct and being socially accountable to the gospel. And that fine line, I think, is something that makes us have to evaluate if this symbol that we've known for all our lives, you know, I mean, it's just like the New Revised Standard Version is the one that speaks the most to me. All the rest of them are, take them or leave them. And if you have a problem with that, that's your problem, not my problem. That's the wrong attitude in this. The cross and flame is what I've known for most of my life. But if it has an issue, it becomes a stumbling block, as Paul would say, then we're in trouble. We need to seriously look at that and evaluate that and come back to what is socially accountable and socially appropriate to the gospel message. If this is causing a stumbling block, then we're not doing it right. We need to stop and rethink it. So
that's a good point. Thank you for reminding us that. I mean, that always has to be in the forefront of our mind about our opinions on anything, right? What is the gospel leading us to think about? And when I first saw the conversation a few months ago, I remember seeing a comment from actually someone from our conference, and that's what kind of drew me in at first, and talking about going to, I think, a sandwich shop in New York City, something like that, and wearing a United Methodist T-shirt, which meant the cross and flame was pretty prominent on the shirt. And the shop owner, whom I remember correctly, I think was Jewish, as our friend and colleague was coming in, started telling that person, you need to get out of here. We don't accept that kind of stuff in here. Right. And so how easy it is for someone on the outside to see something that we miss. Now, of course, intention, right? Intention versus impact. I want to talk a little bit about that next week, but I don't think the people who designed the cross and flame said, let's be racist about this. I don't think that's true. But intention matters impact matters as well. We can be mindful of that. And there's that knee-jerk reaction you see that kind of frustrates me. This again, oh, this is just being politically correct. Oh, this is just one person crying. Oh, what are we going to do? We're going to get rid of the Holy Spirit. If
Cancel culture.
Yeah, and if the whole, if we feel like the Holy Spirit is going to be bound up because we change a logo, then we have we are surely missing something about who and what the Holy Spirit is.
Right. Exactly.
And I think from my perspective, maybe not my perspective, but I think how people may receive what I think sometimes. It's easy for me to let go of these kinds of things because I don't have a deeply rooted sense of or experience of tradition. I didn't grow up in the church. Now I chose the United Methodist Church for a lot of reasons. That symbol has meant a lot to me, even through all this learning too. I used to think automatically that, that was, the cross, Jesus, and Pentecost. Well, there's even more than that, right? There's two flames, which was meant to signify the union of the two denominations coming together. And also obviously the flame brings warmth. It's supposed to remind us of John Wesley's heart strangely warmed. And so all that was encompassed in this deal, which is kind of good. But again, the intention, we're past the intention, and we have to talk about the impact. And I spoke to somebody this morning from the North Texas Conference, somebody I admire and respect greatly, and asked kind of what the atmosphere was like, what was the tone of the conversation. And essentially that person told me that, there was no dissent in the conversation, really. The only question was timing. And that, what you're talking about, Tom, maybe in a sense, like, does it even matter right now? Is it getting, kind of dealing with this right now? Maybe is a question some people had.
I think it does matter.
Say it again, Brad.
I think it does matter. I think it matters no matter what time it is, no matter what the climate is outside. If we're not reflecting on these kinds of issues, then I think we're coasting and not paying attention to what's going on in our world, and we're not paying attention to the needs of people for the gospel. And I think it's absolutely essential that we pay attention to this. I think it is the right time to do this, and there's no wrong time to be reflective of who's being impacted by this.
Well, I think that the conversation is timely, and on the other hand, this issue about the logo, I think it's a good time to talk about it. But to redesign it right now, I don't think I think eventually it needs to be done, but I think we need to be on the other side of the next general conference and what comes out of that, because when that happens, then you're going to, most likely we're going to be, instead of the United Methodist Church, the divided Methodist Church, and different ones are going to go in different directions. And so out of that, then it's just the acknowledgement of neither one will carry the cross and the flame into the future. And the redesign will come out of that time. So the conversation it's the right time to have that conversation. The redesign, it's not the right time to have a redesign.
No. And I think the other impact that we have to consider is the fact that this symbol is not just something that's American. Granted, it was designed here in America for Americans in 1965, 66, 67, 68, somewhere in that area.
I wasn't there.
I was barely there. I remember it all. I took notes. No, I really think that we do have. It took time to come up with that image, and it was one of many different images, is what I understand, that was chosen to represent the life of the church. And so I agree, Tom. I don't think this is appropriate to just hastily come up with something else instead of. I think it needs to be a conversation. And at the same time, it needs to be a conversation that includes voices from outside of the United States and our experiences. One of the things that I've experienced is, did I say something wrong, Tom? Are you leaving? No.
I'm done. Tom said, you know what? He said, you take your experiences and
Yeah.
go on.
That's right. But I think we need to recognize that there's a presence of Methodism outside the church in the United States that's global. And that symbol means something different than what it means to us here.
Sure.
And so that's something that needs to be a part of that conversation too, that those voices need to be included in the conversation of what does United Methodism look like now globally, more so than just what happened in the Evangelical United Brethren and the Methodist Church coming together in 1968. What does United Methodism look like globally?
As we were talking here, and 2020 being everything it has been so far, one of the sort of maybe good things. Look, now Wade's okay. Forget you, Wade.
Is it
want
my
to talk
turn?
to you anyway? Yeah. See, everybody's. Hold on, guys. Hold on.
Man, you're triggered today.
Hold on. I'm leaving. I've had enough of me too.
Really, I don't understand.
No, but everything that's happened in 2020 kind of gave all that conversation in some sense a pause of the kind of the impending doom awaiting our denomination.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave me a chance to take a breath. I was tired of hearing about it all the time and some of the nastiness, and God, forgive us. And just kind of a side note, I don't mean to bring it up and figure out it's not, we're not going to talk about it anymore, but just us talking about it as casually as we are, what is looming for our denomination. It's man, it's breaks my heart. I had confidence that that we were going to be able to figure it out, that we were going to figure out how to hold these kinds of oppositional viewpoints and tension together and figure out how to be in ministry, and just to know that that's probably not going to happen. That's kind of disappointment is not the right word, but here we are. So
Heartbreaking.
It is very heartbreaking. Forget the logo. I don't care about a logo, right? I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not oh man, I fell asleep during that class, iconoclasm. I don't know if this is the total modern example, but I'm not one of those who says get rid of every kind of imagery, but I'm also like whoever said it before, I'm not bound to these things, because our faith is not in what that symbolizes. Our faith is in what that is, right? The cross of Jesus and inspiration and power of the Holy Spirit. So
yeah, John, I think when you think about all of what you just said, especially as it relates to what's ahead for our denomination, I think there is a certain amount of grief and lament about what's ending, and the unknown about that. But I also, I kind of want to just throw in there that what's God doing in all of this, and what is beginning, and is this really the end, or is it just another place for us to kind of go through the fire of sort of God not testing us, but sharpening us. And we've been a denomination for 52 years. How long are we going to be a denomination? And I think as far as talking about the logo and a redesign, I think those are really different conversations. I think you can abandon logo and not have one. For me,
there goes our letterhead.
Yeah, well, I say that.
Get rid of all my business cards. Thanks.
I say that, and I'm lucky to be serving this church, and they have their own logo. So it's easier for me to say that, I guess. But really, I think, and I'm not going to make an edict at the church or anything like that. But I think it's a simple thing to abandon the logo, and I think the timing is, it's really up to each church or each individual. But But I see no reason to continue to promote that logo at this point. I'm not going to, start a protest or a movement, but
I designed a new church logo for us last year, and
yeah,
guys, I mean, guess what takes almost center stage besides the church name?
right.
Cross and flame. There it is. Like, oh,
Well,
my
I
gosh.
inherited this one, so I guess I'm fortunate, but I think that I think if we're for me, if I'm serious about um, the potential, for lack of another word, harm that's being done to folks like our brother in North Texas, what he wrote about, that I don't need to. I can do something different, and we can have a different conversation. And as far as redesigning logos or coming up with logos or whatever, to me that's a different conversation for a different time when circumstances within the administrative arm of the church have been more crystallized.
I think it's a visionary question too, you know. I remember reading a book a while back called The Dream Society by Rolf Jensen, and it was a book that was really designed toward helping us to shift our mindsets away from data and information toward the story behind things. You know what I mean? That free range chickens lay free range chicken eggs. You know what I mean? And there's something about the words free range that evokes an emotional response, or it evokes a desired response from some folks. And most of us don't even think about eggs. It's like, where's my dang frying pan, and I could get some butter in there, and we're going to. But it's something about learning the story behind it that makes something have more value. And what's the story behind where we are going as a church? And not just where we've been. We've got to remember the story of where we've been. We came from Wesley and the Holiness Club, at Oxford, and that has to be a part of our DNA. But what does that DNA look like going forward for the next 52 years, the next 104 years, the next 208 years, and on and on and on? What are we doing about making sure that we're reaching people the way that we need to reach them? And so, logo is the quick branding, if you will, but meaning and intent, design, vision, all of that is something that has to be in conversation. It's not something that can be quickly done up as a business plan. It really has to be intentional. And I think that's something that we have stopped doing for a while we were arguing, and that arguing has been it has short circuited who we're supposed to be.
Come on. All right. Well, what's that?
I just want to know if it was my turn to get up and walk off.
You might as well, right?
I've already had my accident. My screen, camera went away. So,
so we'll get ready to close, but preacher's famous last words, right? I have no problem getting rid of a logo, especially because of everything we talked about. So thank you all guys for your nuance. Part of my frustration again is how quick many people are to say, oh, well, this is just one person, all that kind of stuff that just doesn't make sense to me. And then what awaits our denomination, sounds like we are going to split, but I'm also convinced probably in another 40, 50 years, we're going to say, you know what, guys, it's time to get back together again. I just feel that. I listen to some of these younger people, a lot of them, and I don't know, I just feel like they're going to be able to figure something out and guide us through it. So I give thanks to God for that, and appreciate you guys offering a bunch of nuance. That's helpful, because I think that's what's missing as well. We're used to hearing, this is what I think and that's it, and I don't even know why I think that, but I think it, and you better not say anything against me. So we're grateful to God for 702 Bible translations. We're grateful to God because even though a denomination may divide, even though a logo may go away, God is still who God is.
Yeah,
Can we just
football club club up in Washington that's, doing without a logo right now. So
Yeah,
there we
maybe
go.
that's what we can do on our letterhead. We'll just write church.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. Church. That's all we are. All right. That's all the time we have. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. I can't hear you, bro. Hey, Tom, we can't hear you. No, Tom. This is what happened at annual conference on Saturday. We had so many issues.
This feels all too familiar.
It feels like your microphone is muted itself.
Nope, still not there. All right.
I think it's time to play his walk-off music.
That's right. There it is. That's right. So tune in next week when we get Tom's microphone figured out. Until then, Brad, Wade, Tom, thank you for the gift of your time. Everybody out there listening, if there's something you want us to talk about, send us a message, and we'd love to be able to wrestle with that and figure out what a Christ-like response might be. Until then, have a great rest of the weekend. God be with you.
God's blessings.
See y'all
Bye.
later. Take care.
Can't hear you, Tom.